Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. How's everyone doing this morning? Sorry I'm late. Later than usual. I wanted to make sure everything was quiet around here before I went live. And I'm going to apologize for not doing my member stream last night. I had it set up to do, and every time that I would hit to go live, it wouldn't go live. And it kept saying in my studio the video was processing. So I just got aggravated and deleted it. And we're going to do it Saturday night. We're going to play some true crime trivia. And I'm going to do shout outs. Sorry, I had to take a drink of coffee. Anyways, this morning I thought we would talk a little bit about the book I'm reading, The Murders of Christopher Watts. And also we got some true crime news. I think I'm going to do the true crime news first, and then we'll talk about the Chris Watts book. Now, I'm still reading it. I'm only on like chapter 17. Hey, Keisha. Good morning. Will, good morning. Light Feather. Lisa, Sapphire. Good morning, everyone. Mike. Never Lose Hope. Cheryl Lynn. Sorry, I forgot to say hi, guys. I just got to run in my mouth. Anyways, yeah, I'm not done reading it yet, but it is interesting if it's true. We don't know if it's true or not, though. So, first up, I want to share with y'all this story out of Denver. This man actually killed his 21-year-old neighbor over some dog poop. Wounded her boyfriend. Let's see. This happened actually back in June 10th. I think he's just now been charged. Let me screen share. What is wrong with the world? He wouldn't want me to be his neighbor because my dog's Smokey. He always goes to the neighbor's yard to do his business. And then I had to go clean it up. Motive for murder, dog poop. Neighbor guns down woman, 21 years old, with AR-15. Here's the thing about this AR-15. He actually stole this gun from one of his police friends. Yep. I'm going to read this to you. A Denver man stole an AR-15 from a police officer friend and used it to kill a 21-year-old neighbor and seriously injure her boyfriend because he was angry about their dog defecating on the ground near his apartment. Michael Close, age 36, has been charged with multiple felonies and misdemeanors in the death of Isabella Thallis and the wounding of 27-year-old Darion Simon on June 10th, 2020. Simon said that he heard someone yelling at him, asking if the victim was going to train the dog or just yell at it, according to a probable cause statement. He said he tried to ignore the suspect, but realized he was pointing what he thought was a pellet gun at them through a window just before opening fire. Isabella was pronounced dead at the scene, and Simon was shot twice. Close fled after the shooting, but was located about an hour later. An AR-15 Close used belonged to Denver Police Public Information Officer Doug Shepman, who said that he notified the investigators the rifle belonged to him when he realized it was missing. He said this week that the rifle was not a police-issued weapon. Oh, so it was his personal weapon. Close has been charged with one count of first-degree murder after deliberation, one count of first-degree murder with extreme indifference, and 1 count of attempted first-degree murder after deliberation, and 1 count of attempted first-degree murder with extreme indifference, and 1 count of first-degree assault with a deadly weapon, 1 count of first-degree assault with extreme indifference, and 6 counts of possession of a large capacity magazine during a crime. Damn. He's also been charged with 6 misdemeanor charges, 3 counts of possession of a prohibited large capacity magazine, 2 counts of prohibited use of a weapon, 1 count of disorderly conduct for possessing a firearm. There are also 4 possible sentence enhancers related to the commission of a violent crime and use of a weapon. Close returns to court for an arraignment on March 8th. Can you believe that he gunned this girl down over her dog pooping near his apartment and almost killed her boyfriend, seriously injured him over a dog using the bathroom near his apartment? It looks like to me he was just looking for an excuse to kill her. He must have had it in for her. People are nuts, I'm telling you. What about the dog? Yeah, I wonder what happened to the dog. Well, her boyfriend survived, so maybe he has the dog. Hey, Lisa, good morning. It is sad. 21 years old. Gunned down because her dog used the bathroom near his apartment. What the hell's wrong with people? Seems like to me he had it out for this couple. He was just looking for an excuse. The boyfriend said he thought it was a pellet gun he had pointed through the window. Now, this cop he stole the AR-15 from. Did he not notice the big rifle was gone? He got that many guns. He didn't notice it was gone. Does he not keep them locked up or what? It's crazy. He deserves, this guy, which just happened in Colorado, he deserves the death penalty. They still have the death penalty there, but I don't think they've executed anyone in a long time. But he executed this girl. He ambushed them. I mean, hell, he had a gun pointing out the window. Okay. I was trying to find something here. That cop's in trouble. Well, he should be in some kind of trouble. I think if you're going to have guns like that, you should have them locked up. I also bring poopy bags when I take my dog for a walk. Well, yeah, that's the polite thing to do, is to clean up after your dog. My ladybug, every time I take her for a walk, she wants to go do her business in the county cop's yard. There's a county cop that lives down the road from me. Lady always wants to poop in his yard. And usually he's outside. And I always am like, I'll clean that up. And he's like, no, don't worry about it. I'll get it when I scoop my dogs up. But it is so embarrassing. I hate when a car is coming by and the dog's got to poop. It's so embarrassing. What's in the water in Colorado? Good question. Speaking of Colorado, remind me of Suzanne Morphew. I was looking for an update on her this morning. Couldn't find anything. I don't know if they're ever going to find out what happened to that poor lady. There's a lot of bad things that go on in Colorado. Kelsey Barrett's case was in Colorado too. There's a lot of things that go on in Texas and Florida, Ohio. Okay. So there was a woman who was shot inside of the Capitol building yesterday. I guess they was having some kind of big protest and a mob stormed inside of the Capitol building and the police shot her. She was a 14-year Air Force veteran from San Diego. So the woman who was shot as a mob of Trump supporters breached the U.S. Capitol building on Wednesday has died. The Washington Post reports that the woman died from her injuries after she was shot inside the Capitol building during a riot that coincided with Congress assembling to certify the results of the U.S. presidential election. Now, look, common sense. I hate someone's died. This is awful. But common sense. You could get hurt if you are at one of these riots and storm the Capitol building. That's common sense. It's dangerous. The Post reported that a Capitol police officer fired the fatal shot as she was among a group of rioters who ignored orders to stop after they had broken into the Capitol. KUSI News identified the woman as Ashley Babbitt, a 14-year Air Force veteran from San Diego. The mayor of D.C. has ordered a curfew that went into effect at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. That's sad that, she was shot and killed, but gosh, you can't storm inside of the Capitol building. Especially when you got things going on inside of there. It's so sad. I'm wondering why they shot. I know they were told to stop. I guess the rioters didn't stop, and I guess they opened fire because of that. I don't know. It's scary. Hey, Samara. When I was listening in on this Dream Red Room posted yesterday, there was a young boy that explained exactly what happened. He had her blood on his hands. Oh, really? Hey, soccer mom. Well, that's what I'm thinking too, Lisa. I'm like, gosh, why did they go inside of the Capitol building like that? You cannot do things like that, or you will get shot. And that's what happened. Hey, Charlie Girl says, good morning. How are you? Good morning, everyone, if I missed anyone. This is sad that a woman has lost her life, but you just cannot do things like that. You can't just storm into the Capitol building, especially when they're in there, they're having an assembly or something. Oh, they were assembling to certify the results of the election. Here's another article, and I want you to look at this full. I'm going to screen share. There's some people inside of the freaking Capitol building holding rebel flags, acting like a bunch of freaking, I don't know, lunatics. I'm sorry, but things like this is crazy to me. I think Mark was telling me this morning this was Antifa. I don't know how he knows that, but that's what he said. Look at that. They got rebel flags. This guy right here is dressed up like a damn buffalo. What in the hell is wrong with these people? Why is he in that getup? Now, Mark did tell me something, because he follows all the politics, about this guy in the buffalo suit. He's at all those protests and stuff. He's got something to do with Antifa. They look like a bunch of freaking idiots. Bunch of freaking hicks. What in the hell? Also, I want to show y'all something. This is a creepy story. Tell y'all about this creepy story. This happened in Norway, South Carolina. 8 friends were out four-wheeler riding on ATVs. They come across this abandoned house, and the rumor is that it's haunted. They decide to explore the abandoned house. They go inside. There's this horrible smell. And on the back porch, there's a freezer. One of the guys, the 18-year-old, decided to look inside the freezer to see what that smell was. He opened up the freezer and he found a dead body. All he could really tell was a dead body with jeans and socks on. I think a shirt. Of course, they called police. Police have not identified the body yet. They're going to have to do DNA testing because decomposition. The body was decomposed so badly. But 2 days after the body was found, this house, this abandoned house, has no electric or anything going to it. Burns to the ground. Yeah. Let me see. Let me screen share here. I can show y'all some pictures of it. Now, the owner of the property and the house is cooperating with authorities. Okay. Let this ad get through and we'll look at some pictures of the house. I hate ads on these articles. So there's the house. I'd love to have a little farmhouse like that and redo it, remodel it. Still looks like a nice little house to me. It needs some work done. Well, it burnt to the ground, so it's not there anymore. Isn't that creepy? Can you imagine coming across this house and, you've heard it's haunted and you decide to go explore and look around and you find this freezer on the back porch and there's this foul odor and you open it up and find a body inside of it. Can you imagine? I would have screamed. I'd have went out there running probably. I'd have probably peed my pants. Sounds very deliberate. Yeah. Ever who put that body there is probably the person that burnt the house to the ground. They're trying to cover up any evidence they may have left behind, fingerprints and things like that. It's probably someone that's related to the property owner. I don't know. I just got that feeling. I'm going to keep following this and see. I was trying to look this morning to see if they had any missing persons in that area. I think it's called Norway, South Carolina. Yeah, Norway. Okay. I think that's about all in the true crime news I was going to share. I was just going to talk about the Chris Watts book I've been reading this morning. I've got it pulled up here on my phone, and I was going to read to y'all one of the letters that he sent to Cheryl Cadle about the murder. Now, do y'all remember a while back when this book was first released and there was like a passage from the book that was leaked, and it said something about Chris making Bella walk up the steps of the battery tanks, or the oil tanks, whatever you want to call them. Do y'all remember that? Well, like, I'm on chapter 17 and I have not read that yet. I don't know where that came from. Tell us, what do you think, CC? I'm curious. Well, I'm gonna tell you what, it's interesting because I just kept reading and reading and reading. I just could not put my phone down. Yesterday I didn't do much reading because I had a lot of stuff to do, but so Cheryl starts out the book describing how she got to know Chris Watts, all this and that. She decided to write him to prison. She told him she was going to write a book. It took her a couple of times writing to him for him to write back. Eventually, they started writing back and forth. She explained to him that she didn't live too far from the prison, so she could visit him and stuff, and I believe she did visit him. Anyway, she got to know Cindy Watts. Cindy actually called Cheryl one time. Cheryl had gotten busy and hadn't wrote Chris back yet. This is after he decided to respond to her the first time. Then she hadn't responded to him. So he actually got Cindy to call Cheryl. And Cindy told Cheryl, like, hey, he still wants to do this book as long as you give him a place in the book where he can share his story. So, eventually, that relationship soured. The Cheryl Cadle and the Watts fell out. Now, in the book, it describes Nicole Kessinger and Chris's relationship, and it says that she actually pursued Chris Watts. He had never had a woman chase after him. So he was like, wow, blowed his mind. Made him want to be with her even more. But he says that she was very lewd, a lewd person. That's how it described her. She liked to do lewd things, I guess, in the bedroom. That's what it was saying, that she was freaky in the bedroom. She liked to do lewd things. Some of the things that they did, he's going to take it to the grave with him. Ugh. We know she's a weirdo. She looked up anal sex. Like, who in the hell looks up anal sex? For real. I mean, it's never entered my mind to look up anything like that. Freaking weirdos. Okay. It also says, Cheryl says in the book, that Nicole Kessinger stalked Shanann online. Silently stalked her online. She like looked her up. I believe it says like two different times she looked Shanann up. So she knew Chris and Shanann were not split up. And it says she also knew that Shanann was pregnant. What else did it say? Oh, yeah. Chris said that Nicole Kessinger and her friends were into some dark stuff, like rituals and stuff like that. I'm just wondering if they're devil worshippers. Vicky says, oh, Chris is lewd himself. That's the way they describe her, as lewd. And some of the things they did in the bedroom, he's going to take it to the grave with him. He's such a weirdo. He said that Nicole was actually interested in what he had to say. Shanann never would listen to him. He said it was Shanann's way or no way. If he went against her or disagreed with her, she would get really angry. Now, this is what he was telling Cheryl. She'd get really angry. So he didn't, disagree with her much or voice his opinion much because he wanted to avoid a fight. What a loser. What else? What was it saying? Oh, let me read y'all the letter that he wrote to her about the murders. I think that the FBI should be investigating Nicole Kessinger. They should have already investigated her. They didn't investigate too much. They basically just went on that weirdo's word. And she lied to police several different times. She erased messages from her and Chris. Before she went to the police station, she erased messages. But she lied about their relationship. She acted like that she wasn't that serious about Chris. And that is not true. She was just as crazy about him as he was her. Now, in this letter that he writes to Cheryl about the night the murders happened, he says that he put drugs in Shanann's system. He drugged her with oxycodone. Okay. Is her name Sherilyn or is it Sherlyn? Dear Sherlyn, April 23rd, 2019. Hello again. I hope you are doing well. It's been awesome talking with you on the phone, but I know the 15-minute time frame is a pain. Sometimes I can get right back on the phone, but right now there are other inmates that like to be on the phone as much as I do, so I respect their time as well. How's your dad doing? I've been praying on that every day. Yes, that petition really blew my mind that people really want to make me suffer like that. Even if they did ever take my pictures, they can't take my memories. An inmate from another institution wrote me about that subject and said, if they take your pictures, they would need to take the pictures from the other 500 to 600 people that have their family pictures up on their cell convicted of the same act. So he wrote this letter during the time that petition was going around. Remember, everybody's raising hell because he had their pictures in his cell. Okay, so do I feel like I should be incarcerated for the act I committed? I most definitely think so. Do I imagine myself ever doing anything like this or, excuse me, or be a danger to society? I most definitely think not. If I were to ever be released, I know I would go straight to a ministry and start going to jails, prisons, and help inmates. If God led me to be ordained, I would go that route as well, possibly even be a chaplain. Maybe the laws will change one day. My attorney team could see I was different and knew that this was a one-time occurrence for me. They told me that in Europe, the law is I would serve 20 years or so for homicide. And in California, after 25 years of imprisonment on a life sentence, you can be released if you've had good behavior. Dream on, buddy boy. There's hope for everyone to live outside prison walls. I know physically I'm behind these walls, but my spirit is free with Christ. If God keeps putting it on your heart that there is more to the story than what I told the FBI has, you're correct. I don't like saying stuff like that over the phone because I'm never certain when they screen my calls. I already told you the vision I had before August 13th. When I was lying in bed, all the lights were on in the loft and downstairs, and I felt so alone. That's exactly what happened April 14th when I was lying in bed. Oh, yeah. I forgot to tell you something. So Chris Watts thinks that he was possessed by an evil spirit. That's why he killed his family. Yeah, that's in here too. Okay, let me finish this letter. I don't know if you want this to be in the book or if God does, but here are the things I left out. First, August 12th, when I finished putting the girls to bed, I walked away and said, "That's the last time I'm going to be tucking my babies in." I knew that was going to happen the day before, and I did nothing to stop it. I was numb to the entire world. I had literally taken my kids to a birthday party, played with water balloons, had an amazing time, sang songs all the way home, gave them gave them bath, a shower, ate dinner, read bedtime stories, and sang bedtime songs, and still nothing registered. When Shanann had to be somewhere, I always enjoyed taking the girls to places or playing outside because it was our opportunity to bond. And still, the night before, I couldn't stop myself from what I knew would occur the next morning. Second, August 13th, morning of. I went to the girls' room first, before Shanann and I had our argument. I went to Bella's room, then Cece's room. Used a pillow from their bed to kill them. That's why the cause of death was smothering. After I left Cece's room, I climbed back in bed with Shanann, and our argument ensued. After Shanann had passed, Bella and Cece woke back up. I'm not sure how they woke back up, but they did. That made the act that much worse, knowing I went to their rooms first and knowing I still took their lives at the location of the batteries. Third, the reason the medical examiner found oxycodone in Shanann's system is because I gave it to her. I thought it would be easier to be with Nicole if Shanann wasn't pregnant. I don't know if it was a spiritual visit, but I had a dream Cece was dancing next to the chair in my cell. When she was dancing, all my folders on the chair started moving, and I thought she was in trouble, so I said, "Watch out, get away, watch out." Then I woke up. I'm hoping she comes back. I hope everyone comes to visit me. I'm trying to see if I can clear my head better before I go to sleep to help. I like the John chapter 10, verse 10 passage you sent. I wish I could have had an open ear to hear the Lord calling me back in June, July, and August. If we run after sin, we won't hear our shepherd calling us. I couldn't discern between the good spirits and the evil spirits, and that eventually lodged me into a deep pit I couldn't climb back out of. Take care and God bless. Okay. Also, here in the book, he says that if Shanann hadn't have went on that trip to North Carolina for 6 weeks, that the murders probably wouldn't have happened because he wouldn't have had time to sleep around with Nicole Kessinger. Hey, Captain Obvious. Also, Nicole Kessinger had told Chris that she wanted to give him a son. Now, at this time, Shanann was pregnant. Chris decided that he wanted to get rid of Shanann and the baby because he wanted to have a son with Nicole Kessinger. That could be a first that they could have together. Because Nicole Kessinger, he said she was quite upset that, he already had kids and had been married and they weren't going to have many firsts together, she didn't think. So, anyways, he wanted to get rid of Shanann and Nico so he could have his first son with North Korea, as we like to call her here. Also, it said in the book that if his friends had reached out a little bit more, maybe he would have went to that, what was it, like a baseball game? Instead of going on that date with Nicole Kessinger. He just blames everybody else for his actions. This idiot really thinks that there's like a hope, like a chance that he's going to get out of prison one day. Because he made that comment like in California, after you do like 20, 25 years of a life sentence, then you can get out. So he actually thinks he deserves to be out one day. He killed his entire family and thinks he deserves to be out one day so he can be a preacher. Please, nobody wants to hear him preach. It's like nobody wants to read his stupid prayer book, devotional book, whatever the hell it's called. Let's see. So in the book, it actually says that Nicole Kessinger chased after Chris. Chris was having second thoughts about their relationship. He had stayed the night at Nicole Kessinger's one night, right? I can't remember the exact dates. Shanann was in North Carolina. She was pissed. She had been calling Chris all night. Couldn't get a hold of him. The next morning, Chris wakes up, sees all these missed calls, goes outside to call Shanann. Shanann's pissed. Anyways, Chris decides to go home and just spend some time at home away from Nicole Kessinger. Nicole Kessinger couldn't allow that because she thought Chris was having second thoughts. And she thought, oh my gosh, if he goes home and sees all these things around him, all these memories, he might decide to work things out with his wife. So what does she do? She shows up at Chris and Shanann's house with the excuse, oh, well, we're going to do a meal plan a meal plan out, and I'm going to fix your fitness app. That was her excuse. She was not invited there, according to Chris. She just showed up. What else? I should have took some notes, but I didn't because I just got so into reading. Okay, let me read y'all what Charlene's response to Chris was about this letter. She says, after receiving this letter from Christopher, I had many questions, as you can imagine. These are the things he told me after I had received this letter. I asked him about the oxy. He told me first that he gave it to her twice. Once at her parents', and the second time was right before he killed her. At the time, he told me that's the reason she couldn't fight back. Later, when I questioned him about it again, he said he only gave it to her once. I asked him where he got the oxy, and he told me it is one of the things that he will take to his death. The oxy was crushed up and given to her in a Thrive shake. If you notice in one of his letters, he states that Shanann did not take oxy. This is a contradiction from what I have been told by one of his family members. However, I do not believe she took oxy. Shanann seemed to be too responsible to be hooked on an opiate. Well, just because she had a prescription, if she did have a prescription, don't mean she was hooked on an opiate. That could have meant it was left over from her having neck surgery, you know? One minute we would talk about downsizing the house and getting something more affordable in a more affordable town. Then he would go back to me telling her I was going to get an apartment and move out on my own for a while. Shanann started crying because she did not want to separate, telling me she loved me. I hate so much that I came back to her with, I don't love you, and I'm not compatible with you anymore. As she was crying, with her mascara running down her face, She told me she couldn't make it in Colorado by herself with 3 kids. Isn't it weird how I look back and what I remember so much is her face getting all black with streaks of mascara. There was no feeling coming from me as I told her I could help her and she would make it. What kind of man or father would callously say that to his pregnant wife, who was almost begging to keep her family together? Then she became very angry and was very upset and told me if I left her, she would not allow me to see the kids. She was used to getting her way. When when she saw she wasn't, she would revert, as always, to anger and threats to get what she wanted. This time, though, I was not giving in to her demands. That's when my anger for her began. It had been years of her telling me what to do and what not to do, keeping me from my own family for sometimes months at a time. Keeping me in the background was over. All the weeks of me thinking about killing her, and now I was faced with it. When she started to get drowsy, I somehow knew how to squeeze the jugular veins until it cut off the blood flow to her brain, and she passed out. It was even easier than the girls. She lay there and didn't fight back. I held the jugular for what seemed like a very long time. I watched my hands and thought I should take them off her neck, but I couldn't. I knew if I took my hands off of her, she would still keep me from Nikki. They asked me why she didn't fight back. It's because she couldn't fight back. Her eyes filled with blood as she looked at me as she died. I knew she was gone and she relieved herself. I was wrapping her up in the bedsheet when the girls came walking into the room. I don't know how it could be possible, but they were both up walking around. I knew if Nikki and I were going to be together, I had to kill all of them. I wrapped Shanann in the sheet, and Bella kept asking me what was wrong with Mommy. Both girls started crying. Both girls looked like they had been through something. I knew it because of being smothered. I knew it was because of being smothered. I could not comfort my girls. I had no desire to. I think I told her Mommy would be okay. She just didn't feel good. I tried to carry Shanann down the stairs, but I lost my grip on her twice. She was too heavy for me to carry. She fell to the floor, and I ended up kind of sliding her down the stairs. The girls were just kind of running around the house, watching me with scared looks on their faces. Bella started to cry, and when she did, Celeste started whimpering. What a nightmare this was. This is the reason I killed them first, so they didn't have to witness any of this. I wanted to take them peacefully and make it so much easier for them and for me. Now I didn't know what I was going to do. I got Shanann down the stairs and laid her by the back door. I ran outside, backed my truck up in the driveway, and as I was moving the truck, I realized that everything I had thought about was about to be completed. I was angry with the girls that they were up and awake, and I felt angry for Shanann that I could have killed anything that got in my way. My hands were shaking so hard, my knees were buckling under me. I felt like I was seeing through a dark screen. It was too late. I was in this nightmare, and it wouldn't let me out. I realize now the girls getting up and walking around may have been God's third attempt to stop what I was doing. It was too late, though. I couldn't stop. Something had taken me, and I couldn't pull back from it. I gathered the things I needed, such as my lunch, shovel, and rake from the garage, and something wanted me to take the gas can from the garage. I still do not know why I took the gas can. The FBI asked me if I was going to take my own life. I told him I thought about it, but honestly, no, I wasn't going to take my own life. I got Shanann out to the truck by mostly dragging her. Once at the truck, I lifted her in the back and laid her on the floor. I went around to the other side, pulled her across the back floor. The stench of her relieving herself was so strong that to this day can still smell it, and it makes me sick. Now, I'm not sure if it was the stench of her relieving herself or if it was the stench of death. At some point, I grabbed a couple garbage bags and put them around Shanann's feet and around her head. I ran back in, cut some lights, told the girls to follow me. I was shocked when later that day I was standing in the neighbor's living room looking at their security camera video and thought, could they see the girls walk up to me and I put them in the truck? I loaded them in the back seat. Bella said they couldn't ride with me because they didn't have their car seats. I remember telling her this time it's all right. It hurts me, but I remember being so mad that they were still alive. The girls sat curled up with each other. I noticed they were consoling each other, kind of whimpering, but not really crying. The only thing they talked about was why did it stink in the truck. I could not believe that they came back to life. Now I had this to deal with for a second time, plus Shanann. I was still shaking in a sweat, and my heart was pounding so hard in my chest. I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know what I was even doing. Nothing made any sense to me. I had not planned this out carefully enough. I remember just feeling so angry, feeling an emotion I had never experienced before. Now, according to Chris Watts had never experienced anger. He had never experienced that emotion before, ever in his life, until he murdered his family. Now, can y'all believe that? Okay, it took me an hour to get to the site. I had not calmed down at all. The rest of the story, you know. I dumped Shanann on the ground. Then I walked back to the truck with the blanket that Cece was holding. I put it over her head and I smothered her. I carried her up the stairs. I opened the hatch, and I was surprised how small the opening was. I lifted her up and down into the hole. She went in pretty smoothly. I remember as I was lowering her body that I would never see her again. But instead of the love I had always had for her, numbness was in its place. I could not feel anything for her. I couldn't believe how easy it was just to let her drop through the hole and let her go. I heard the splash as she hit the oil. Then, without blinking an eye, I went right back to the truck and went over to Bella. She asked me if I was going to do to her what I had just done to Cece. I don't think I answered her. I just put the same blanket over her head and smothered her. I could not believe, though, how much of a fight she put up. Little quiet Bella had a will to live. Nothing registered in my head for her. Out Out of all three, Bella was the only one who put up a fight. I will hear her soft little voice for the rest of my life saying, Daddy, no. She knew what I was doing to her. She may not have understood death, but she knew I was killing her. I was so empowered at the time. I had the strength to climb those stairs for the second time and put her little body through the hole in the next tank. Bella was harder to get down the hole. Her arms and shoulders did not want to fit through the hole, so I had to force her through the hatch. They told me they found a tuft of blonde hair. I would suspect that's when that happened. I did separate them purposely. I was trying to get them as far away from Shanann as possible. I guess I put them in the tanks to make sure this time they didn't get up. I don't know why, except for the anger I felt. You asked me why I was so angry with Shanann. It was a couple of reasons. I was angry she kept me from my family. I was angry because she was standing in the way of me being truly happy with someone I wanted to be with. Had I not killed them, when I got home that afternoon from work, Shanann would have not let me in my own house. She would have locked the doors or had the locks changed to show me she was still in control. I would have had to make a scene, which is something I did not want to do for the neighbors to see. I had to put the girls in the tank so they wouldn't get up a second time. I then went and dug a hole for Shanann. The dirt was loose, and I remember it was easy to move. When I dug the hole, it seemed a lot deeper than it was. As I pulled on the sheet, she rolled out into the hole. I think she had given birth. She landed face down. I remember being so angry with her that I was not going to change how she landed. I didn't think about if the hole was deep enough or if I had the hole in the right place or if I had made sure to pick up everything so there was nothing left laying around. I realized I had just murdered my daughters twice. I still don't understand how that happened because I know they were dead the first time. My entire life lay there on that oil site. All I could feel all I could feel was now I was free to be with Nikki. Feelings of my love for her was overcoming me. I felt no remorse. The darkness inside of me had won. It was still in me, though. I thought maybe permanently. I felt evil, swallowed up by this thing inside of me. I felt like I could kill anything and be justified for doing it. I didn't feel any remorse for what I did. I didn't feel bad for killing my entire family. I really didn't feel anything. My mind went to the dog. Did I remember to put him in the cage? What possible horror could have been going through those precious little minds at that time? Not understanding, but understanding enough to know something was horribly wrong without even being comforted by their mommy or their daddy. Having hopes in their little minds. I'm sure that mommy was going to be fine and they would be back home in just a little while. They had no concept of what was truly happening or lying just ahead of them, just as Shanann had no idea what she was walking into. I believe they were probably very afraid. After Christopher killed his family, he drove away. Nikki texted him to look up the song by Metallica called Battery. I challenge you to look up the full lyrics of this song. I find it interesting that we should believe it's only a coincidence. After Christopher wrote this letter to me, I asked him if he really put the girls in the old batteries so he could make sure they didn't get back up a second time. He replied, "Yeah, it seems." Christopher went back to work that day like a normal day. Later, when interviewed, his co-workers said he acted like it was a normal day. They noticed nothing different about him at all, except they said his clothes were not as neat as normal. Let me get a drink. They mentioned how he usually came to work looking very well put together. Oh, thank you, Light Feather. I just wanted to read to y'all what he said about, the murders. I've still yet to read anything where it said he made Bella walk up the battery stairs. I don't know where that came from. Maybe it's in another chapter I've not read yet. I'm going to try to finish up the book today. I'm glad I bought it. I said I wasn't going to. But hey, he's not going to get any of the money from this. He can't profit from those murders. He can't sell books or anything like that. It's against the law. Now that I know a little bit more about her personality and stuff, I think it's a good possibility that she could have put it in his head to murder his family. Now, earlier in the book, in the first few chapters, I believe it says he had been planning to kill his family for weeks. This wasn't just something that happened that night. That's what I thought. I thought he just snapped on her. No, if this book is true, which we don't know if it's true because you can't believe nothing Chris Watts says. He had been planning on murdering Shanann for a while because he wanted to be with Nikki. He was out of love with Shanann. He fell out of love with her, and he was in love with weirdo Nikki. And he does say that if he had have never had this affair with Nikki, he would have never killed his family. I think he would have eventually killed them anyways. because he's got something terribly wrong with him. I mean, Chris is one of these people who say, hey, we're going down here to jump off this bridge right now. And he'd be like, okay, yeah, okay, I can do that. I mean, seriously. He would just go along with anything. And he does say that Nicole Kessinger and her friends were into some dark things, whatever that means. Some dark things. Okay. Let's see. What else does it say? Okay, the next chapter is later, the morning of the murders. Is that the only letter? That's the only letter I've come across first. Let me go back to the beginning. And I can read y'all what Cheryl was saying about the Watts family. Trying to find it. Maybe it's in the first chapters. Oh, they said, Cheryl Lynn did say that they asked Shanann's parents, if they would like to say anything or have anything in the book, and they declined, which I don't blame them. Because this author did start out being buddy-buddy with Chris Watts, and then things went south. 50 Shades of Grey, NK and her friends. They probably had orgies and everything. Nothing would surprise me about her. I mean, crap, she looked up anal sex, y'all. Like, who does that? Freaking weirdo. I was trying to find what she was saying about Cindy. Oh, yeah. Cindy Watts blames herself for the murders happening. She blames herself. Because of her and Shanann getting in that argument over Nutgate, what Cindy calls Nutgate. I think there was more to it than just some nuts being set out in the house. Now, Cece had a tree nut allergy, I believe. I've always thought that Shanann not getting along with his parents had something to do with the murders. He had a lot of resentment towards Shanann because she couldn't get along with his parents. But who could get along with Cindy Watts? Can you imagine having her for a mother-in-law? She was always taking little jabs at Shanann, like talking about how expensive her engagement ring was. And, like back in her day, they didn't have to have a ring that expensive. Just little crap like that. It pissed me off, too. Nothing would surprise me about NK. Me either. She's a freaking weirdo. She's just out living her best life. I think she had Chris picked out. That's what I think. That's why she was on Facebook looking up Shanann. Like a year before the murders. I think she was jealous of Shanann. She wanted Shanann's life. That's what I think. No way would I want her for mother-in-law. Me either. Well, so far, guys, the book is interesting. I can't wait to read the rest of it. It is a good read. It's interesting. I mean, for $3.99 to read through Kindle, it's a pretty good deal. Now, if you order the paperback, it's like $12.99. No way I was paying $12.99 for a Chris Watts book. But I couldn't resist. I came across it, and I was like, crap, $3.99. I'm going to read it, see what it says. I don't know if he really drugged her with oxy or not. That would make sense to why she didn't fight back. I'm just wondering what kind of, are we talking about pure oxycodone? Are we talking about oxycontin? Are we talking about Percocet? Because if it was like a Percocet 10 or something, I can't see that making her so drowsy she couldn't fight back. I've always thought he probably attacked her from behind when she was sleeping on her side. Ronnie Watts is as swift as Chris. Ronnie Watts reminds me of my dad. I swear he does. The way he looks and the way he talks. I love listening to you read that. Don't stop. Oh, God. Guys, you know what I started to do? I was like, hey, I should just read this book on my member streams. Is what I should do. But it would just take so long because we only have member streams like once a week. I'm going to see if I can find anything interesting. Let me go back to the mistress part. If I can find it. Oh, right here, the mistress. Okay. Christopher, I'm going to read y'all chapter 6, and then I got to get off here. Hey, Natalie. I'm going to read y'all about the mistress. Well, the chapter starts out with a quote by Rose Kennedy. Birds sing after a storm. Why shouldn't people feel as free to delight in whatever sunlight remains to them? Not the crap. Christopher has not, God, I hate calling him that. Christopher has not told the FBI, but as soon as Nikki told him she wanted to have a first with him, he started planning how he could kill the baby so he could give Nikki their first together. How very sad that Shanann was excited to be able to give him a son. He was planning to take the baby's life before he had a chance to come into the world. This baby boy was the son he always told Shanann he wanted. This would perfectly complete their little family. Shanann thought if Chris would get excited about their baby boy, then he might start feeling differently about their family. At first, Nikki had told Chris she did not even want to have kids, yet telling him she wanted to give him his first son was her way of keeping him. He was not wanting to get rid of Shanann's baby because he thought it was not his. He wanted to get rid of the baby because it was his and he did not want it. However, Shanann was the only one fighting for the marriage. All the while he was trying to destroy it. He would not give his marriage another chance, would not even talk to her about their problems, and would not be honest with her. He let her be the only one in the marriage that had a desire to save it. Chris did try one time to talk to Shanann about their problems. Okay, Chris did not try one time to talk to Shanann about their problems until the morning he killed her. He just couldn't confront her. As soon as the girls all left for North Carolina, he had a new sense of freedom. Nikki latched on very quickly, even though he was married with 2 girls. She wanted him to stay with her every night. She had not yet included Chris in her friend circle, but was ready to right before the murders. In the past, she had been in an abusive relationship. So when it was over, she deleted most of her social media. Her mail went to her father's house like she was hiding from someone. She took medications but never told Chris why. He suspected she was bipolar. She was in Chris and Shanann's house twice, July 4th and again on July 14th. Chris was off to work on July 4th. Was off to work. It says Chris was off to work on July 4th. I don't know. He stayed the night at Nikki's and slept late the next morning. When he got up and checked his phone, there was many missed calls from Shanann. He knew she was going to be really mad. He went outside to call her, and she was beyond pissed, absolutely furious. He decided to just go home for the rest of the day. He went back inside to let Nikki know. Now it was Nikki's turn to be angry. Weren't they going to do something later on that day? He told her no. He was just going home for the day. For the first time, she realized that she was not his number one in his life. Chris must have been having second thoughts. Had she left him alone for the rest of the day, he may have turned around. Later on, she showed up at Chris's house with the ruse she wanted to help him build a healthy protein diet plan. She didn't look around the house much that day. She felt she couldn't allow him to be alone. She knew if he was alone in the house with all the memories and pictures of his family that he might decide his life was too good to give up. Or maybe there was love deep inside him for his family that could be brought to the surface again. On July 14th, Chris and Nikki were headed home from Shelby Museum and decided to stop at his house before getting something to eat. There, Nikki played with Dieter, the family dog, which led her upstairs. The nerve of her to be playing with Shanann's dog. This time she could see what things were like in their life in all the pictures of Bella, Cece, and Shanann. She came downstairs with the most frozen, dazed, confused look on her face. She realized for the first time the life he was living and the family that would be broken into pieces because of their affair. He saw the look of despair, and he put his arms around her, leading her to the couch. As they lay on the couch, she said to him, "You have all this more than most people, and we are doing this. Why are we doing this? Are you willing to give up all this? Is your relationship with your wife that bad?" He told her that he and Shanann had drifted apart and they didn't talk anymore. He was not sure in his own head that he fully believed that. Yet he could see the defect in their relationship. He then told her that before he started seeing her, he and Shanann had actually decided to have a baby. More signs that he was having second thoughts. She freaked out completely and started yelling, "What the F are you doing with me then?" He saw something in her he had not seen before that made him take notice. Your relationship couldn't be that bad if you and Shanann were trying to conceive. Even though he tried to get her to stay and talk to him, she left the house, went out to her truck, and sat there for 30 minutes texting him. Whatever he said to her as he was texting back to her had worked. In his words, he talked her off the cliff, and she wanted him to make her feel better and to come after her, but he didn't. As he thought about it, he realized this is one of the many things that turned him on about her. She allowed him to calm her down by telling her he did not want another baby with Shanann. He withheld the information that Shanann was already pregnant. He told her the plans to have another baby were before he had met Nikki. It had been a way to possibly save their marriage, but it wasn't working. He really doesn't think Shanann was looking at it that way. I believe she was thinking they decided together to have a third baby and they were blessed it was going to be a boy. Nikki came back into the house. She told him he was the only man she ever met who tried to fix problems, smooth it over, and talk things through. He thought, ironically, he had never tried to do that with Shanann. He knew she probably wouldn't listen to him, yet he realized he didn't give her a chance. They had never really talked about things. He had always just let her make the decisions. Nikki asked him then to come over to her house, as if nothing had ever happened. They went back to her house and made love. She tried for it to be hot, passionate love and did some of the things that would normally turn him on. But this time their lovemaking felt different. He felt the guilt rush back to him, and he really didn't want to be there. When they made love, Nikki even felt it was different. They normally would have sex 3 to 4 times a day. Ugh. After that happened, she said their sex was down to only 1 to 2 times daily. When they were finished making love, she told him, I got mad because I thought I could give you your first son. When you told me you and your wife were trying to have a baby, that really made me mad, and it scared me. That made him much more confident in his relationship with her. After all that, Chris and Nikki went to Bendemeer, something like that, races on July 21st and camping in the mountains on July 28th and 29th. Wow. So that was chapter 6. I think he's good, but he isn't my neighbor. He was explaining to me what happened to their marriage. They are a couple. I know. Oh, I must have missed what y'all are saying. See, this is an interesting book. I've known for a long time that Nicole Kessinger threw it up in his face that he already had kids and stuff. She wanted somebody that hadn't experienced that yet. That's what I think. So how did she try to keep him? By telling him she wanted to give him his first son. Freaking weirdo. I think she's more involved than what I originally thought. Hey, Melanie, Christina. I probably missed a lot of people. Okay. What's the next chapter? Chapter 7, The Last Family Vacation. Okay, I'm going to read a little bit of this to y'all. Because this talks about when they're in North Carolina and he tries to get Shanann. He gives her oxy, try to get her to have a miscarriage. Okay, it's called The Last Family Vacation. The following couple of paragraphs have some slightly touched on things the FBI does not know. Trust me, there is much more to come in the following chapters. When Christopher was at the airport leaving for North Carolina, Nikki sent him a text telling him to take his time to fix the issues with your wife and enjoy the time with your family. This gave him a warm feeling of no pressure and loved her for it. The first night Christopher arrived in North Carolina, Shanann needed something for a really bad headache. So Christopher told her he would get her something. Thinking she was taking an over-the-counter pain reliever, he gave her an 80 milligrams of oxycodone. He said the pill made her sick, and Shanann was up vomiting most of the night. He didn't help her because he wanted her to lose the baby. He felt he had given her a large enough dose to miscarry. He texted Nikki that he wouldn't be able to call her, just text her. She replied to him with, "Why not? Are you with her?" He thought she wanted him to spend time. He thought she wanted him to spend time with his family. That put the pressure back on him. Obviously, she wanted him to spend time with her no matter what. Chris was used to trying to please the women he cared about. For the next 8 days, he ignored his wife. At night, she would want sex. He would leave the room. He was not intimate with Shanann during that entire week. He felt he had to do this so he could disappear and talk to Nikki for hours on the phone. When he returned from Colorado, he went to Nikki's using his work truck. That day, Nikki gave him a key to her place. She withheld from the FBI that she ever gave him a key to her house. It told him that she was ready to take it to the next level. So he told her he was moving forward with the separation. He promised Nikki his relationship with Shanann was going to end, even though he had not yet talked with Shanann about a separation. Shanann, in hopes they could still fix their marriage or at least work on it, ordered a book and had it mailed to him, hoping that he would read it before she came home. When he got it, he didn't even open it. He just threw it in the garbage. Chris realized that day that he could not have Nikki and his family at the same time. It was the first he realized it. It was time to get rid of what was standing in the way of his and Nikki's being together, and he could make that happen. He had his nerve up, but the nerve he had was not to talk to his wife about their problems. It was about killing her. While in North Carolina, they had made plans to have a little family vacation at Myrtle Beach. The week he met Shanann and the girls in North Carolina, Shanann may have thought if they got away together for a few nights, they could talk things out and make things better. She tried to do that. By his account, she really wanted to talk, but he wouldn't give her any time to talk or try to come together. Chris was not willing, nor did he have any desire for things to be worked out between them. The only reason he was there was for the girls, not Shanann. Even the girls were on his nerves. He had very little patience with them. It was blatant. Anyone around him would have noticed he was aloof and unfriendly, which was very out of character for Chris. But even his 3 and 4-year-old girl spirits noticed the darkness in him. Their pure spirits could see or sense his dark spirit, and they did not have much to do with him. They did not want to hold his hand or walk or play with him on the beach. Normally, they loved playing with their dad, and he loved playing with them. Not during these days. However, basically didn't want anything to do with him, and he really didn't want much to do with them. The first time ever he felt like that about his kids. Children can see things sometimes that adults can't. They are innocent and pure. It's a belief in the paranormal community that infants and small children are much more sensitive to someone that is evil or has evil intentions. It's believed they have a more open mind as they don't have the mental barriers adults have developed. In order for a spirit to be seen by a human, the human needs to be open and non judgmental. That describes children. The world hasn't touched them yet. Maybe to some point, they still belong to that sweet, sinless spirit world from which they came. They probably did not sense he was going to harm them, but just his spirit being opposite of theirs and not necessarily something to fear. When he left Nikki's that first day back from North Carolina, he had to hurry to meet Shanann for an ultrasound. What would have been a joyful time for them was met with almost a hatred for her and the baby. As they were doing the ultrasound, he could see a new life moving. He felt indifferent and cold towards Shanann and the baby. He did not let the event register in his mind. Here was his son, the son he had always wanted, but he felt nothing for him. Shanann reached out to take his hand in support, but he pulled away. He wanted no part of her or this baby. He wanted a different life. Christopher went back to work and things carried on as they had before they left. He tried to act as usual around his coworkers. Shanann believed they were better, at least taking small steps towards getting better. When he met Shanann later that day for her ultrasound, Shanann was excited. She gave a friend the envelope that revealed the gender of the baby and had invited friends over for the big reveal. Chris was obviously not happy, so since it would have been awkward in front of all their friends that they were not the usual couple they had always been, she canceled the party. A day or so later, she asked the friend to return the envelope, and she texted Chris. He texted back that he would like to find out with her the gender of their baby. When he answered yes, she texted back that she loved him so much he did not respond. Later, she asked him to hold her or hug her. He refused. Chris was cold and shut her out. She said they were talking some, so she thought things were a little better since he found out the baby was a boy. However, he was trying to make things work to his advantage. He was thinking about killing her and the girls at this time. At what point does a person allow their fantasies to change to reality? In this case, it changed soon thereafter. Later that evening, as they were getting ready for bed, Shanann brought up how cold he was when she wanted to hold his hand. He told her his head was just not in the right place and he couldn't deal with her right now. He told her he would be sleeping on the couch. She said to him, "Whatever is going on, or whoever she is, know that you will never see the kids again, so make sure she is worth it." With that, she slammed the door with him on the other side. He waited until he figured she was asleep and called Nikki. He slept on the couch that night. The next night, he stayed in the basement to call Nikki from there. He had decided his marriage was over, but had not told his wife. Shanann knew that the fight between her and Christopher's parents had really affected him. So she sent pictures of the ultrasound to Ronnie and Cindy, introducing them to their grandson, trying to start rebuilding what had been torn down. They said they did not respond to her. Nikki was excited about where things were going and started to tell her friends about Christopher. He decided he needed to delete his Facebook. He knew that her friends might see that Shanann was pregnant. Taking down his Facebook was a further signal to Shanann that something was wrong. It, it was a definite red flag. It was still important that she save her marriage, so she did what she knew best. She booked a couple's weekend in the mountains. She found someone to watch the girls, and Chris agreed to go, but already knew he wouldn't be going. He said he went along with it to satisfy her for a moment. He was already planning how to kill her and the girls and was daydreaming about getting rid of his baggage and starting a new life with Nikki. With this new life, he would be able to dump all the things of the old life, like the house mortgage, his big bills, and his family. This was not logical or normal by any means. Why was he not able to see that none of this was real, but has huge consequences? Is it possible that being wrapped in the web of lies because of his affair kept him from looking at things logically? Yet, of course, not every affair ends in murder. Shanann had thought about canceling the trip to Arizona with Thrive. She was going to a Thrive convention with some of the girls on her downline. Her heart was just not in it, since they had just been apart for so many weeks and things had not gone well. Yet Chris did agree to go away with her the next weekend, just the two of them. She had told a friend they seemed to be headed in the right direction. Chris did not want her to cancel. He saw an open door to be able to see Nikki. So he told Shanann to go ahead and go on her trip, and they would talk when she got home. This gave Shanann a flicker of hope that things may be getting better. So, feeling somewhat relieved, she decided to go ahead and go to Arizona for her job. The weekend was hard for Shanann. Her pregnancy, morning sickness, and marital problems were all that she could think about, and he wouldn't even touch her. She loved their life and didn't want it to end. She didn't want to raise these three kids alone. Shanann was a person who seemed to love life and the people in her life, and she wasn't ready to stop fighting for her marriage. But unfair as it was, she didn't know what or who she was fighting. With things being stressful and confusing while living a double life, Chris felt God gave him three chances to turn around from the affair and the things he was planning in his mind. He had those chances to turn everything around, and none of these things would have happened. One evening, on his way to Nikki's house, he felt God urging him to turn around and not to do this, but he kept going, knowing the whole way there he should turn around and not go to her place. All of a sudden, his car started to skid like it was going to run off the road. He almost lost control, knowing immediately God was trying to turn him around. There was no other explanation for why he started to lose control of his car. He knew this was the first chance God gave him to get out of the situation. Chris put it well when he said, "We always think something new feels better than something old." It didn't take long for Chris to find out the old was much more appealing and comfortable than the new. When Chris talked to Shanann during the 5-week period when she was in North Carolina, he became more and more distant with her. As much as possible, he would ignore her calls and texts and come up with excuses for why he didn't answer her. He was building that wall between them so it would be easier to forget he had a family. She didn't understand and started to question the distance being put between them. He had always been so good and attentive to her. She even told one of her friends that before she left, he couldn't keep his hands off of her, and now he would barely talk to her. I think she realized how much she loved Chris and wanted to make things right between them. Had she taken the girls and gotten on a plane and gone home, it might have changed everything. Yet his actions were so different than anything he had ever shown before. This is Charlotte Cadle. Somebody stick a fork in him, it's done, Red Rum says. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is a long chapter. He was trying to rid himself of the guilt by going to Nikki's, or he didn't have any guilt at all, which is very possible since he did not feel remorse or guilt after he killed them. No, he didn't feel nothing when he killed his kids. He was relieved. He was relieved that his whole family was gone. He had hatred towards the kids because they were Shanann's. They were stopping him from being with his true love, Nikki. Okay. He didn't have any guilt at all. Okay, he was falling out of love with Shanann, and in its place were only thoughts of trying to get rid of her and his kids. He thought he had fallen in love with Nikki, or he was in love with the way Nikki treated him. Nikki was not like anyone he had ever met. He loved her touch, her conversation, her beauty. Excuse me, she is not beautiful. He thought she brought out the best in him, yet she actually was bringing the darkness out of him. He had an addictive craving for her when he wasn't with her. Shanann was not one to coddle him or give in to his actions, but she knew this was not the Chris she had always known and loved. So she did try to be kind and more attentive to him. Something had drastically changed between them, and if it wasn't someone else, she could not figure out what it possibly could have been. With this looming over her, she must have felt such a heavy weight over her. She was about to be blindsided, even though she was being warned by her friends that she should find out if he was seeing someone. Her friends urged her to ask him if there was someone else, and later that month, she did start asking him. She asked him daily several times. Her insecurities were coming out. She had never worried about Chris cheating on her or making her feel anything but important to him. He would only answer he didn't know what was going on in his head, but no, there was no one else. He kept making excuses for being tired or would say he fell asleep early. It seems the last thing she considered was him having an affair. No, the last thing she considered is him murdering his 2 daughters and her. She trusted him and believed he had always been truthful with her. She even told a friend Chris didn't have a game. She did not think it was possible for him to love anyone but her. That's the kind of trust she had in him. That's the way he had always made her feel, and she made him feel the same, she thought. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 7. I could sit here and read it all day to you guys, but I got stuff to do. I got to go in here and get some laundry done, and I'm going to mop my floor. I got to sweep and mop and get some things done when I got the house to myself. Thanks for listening to me read. Hey, if you guys would be interested and reading it from the beginning, me reading it from the beginning, let me know. Because I'm thinking about doing something like that on my member streams, having like a book club and read a book to y'all. May not be this book, but I'm thinking about getting The Stranger Beside Me, the Anne Rule book, and doing it. We could listen all day, baby girl. Oh, I could sit here and read all day. I could, but I got some things I need to get done. I need to go in here and check on Chloe. I hear her coughing a little bit. See what she's doing. She ran out of her medicine, and I sent Mark to the vet to get it yesterday. And they gave her the wrong pill. They didn't give her fluid pill to her, so that's why she's coughing. Thanks. Yes, Reed does. Okay, well, I'll get the book and I will plan on doing that. But this Saturday night on our channel members live stream, we're going to do trivia. I found us some good trivia. You been listening, Yvonne? It says stain for calling Chris whatever bad. I know it. He tries to blame everybody and everything but himself for the murders. He makes 2 or 3 different excuses, like, if Shanann had came back from North Carolina, then it wouldn't have happened. If his friends had have tried harder to get him to go to the baseball game, this and that. Toodles, Melanie. I love that, Toodles. Y'all have a good day, and I will see y'all tomorrow. Same time, same place. Be safe, be kind, and peace.